Today, for your viewing pleasure, Brian will be preparing his homemade applesauce.
Applesauce. It's like the simplest thing ever, but people want to screw it all up by adding sugars and chemicals, and no, we don't do that. Mine has no sugar added. I'm not going to say it doesn't have any sugar in it because the apples have plenty of sugar, but I don't actually add any sugar to it, and most people who have had it don't believe me. This actually comes, well, I've made it before, but your mom, it's her mom has lichen planus, which means like everything she eats burns her mouth. So she can't eat a lot of foods, and I mean, she does anyway, but you know, it bothers her. So I started making this, and this is one of the things that she can have that does not affect her.
Even when she's eaten something that is irritated her mouth,
this can help
she can
soothe.
eat the applesauce and it soothes.
Right.
So the secret to Brian's applesauce is displayed in front of you right now.
I'm not giving away the secret. I'm not kidding. Okay, but what she means is the real trick to this is use different kinds of apples. It almost doesn't really matter what kinds of apples you use as long as they're different. Now, I like Fuji apples personally, like for, you know, biting into it and eating it, I like Fuji apples. I don't like Red Delicious apples, but they do have a certain almost a tart sweet thing going that works really well for this. They also add a little bit of texture, so it's not just like goopy, you know.
And our third apple is the Gala apple, just because...
Honeycrisp, isn't it?
Gala.
Oh, did we go with Gala? Okay.
Gala.
I would have preferred Macintosh. However, they didn't have any. They had Honeycrisp or Gala. We went with Gala, which is kind of in between a Red Delicious and a Fuji. Kind of, sort of. The Macintosh I like because it adds a little extra tanginess, but you can make that up with the spices. Now, we don't have the spices out here now, but the things that I use are cinnamon, for one. Gotta use cinnamon. A little bit of ground clove, just a tiny bit, and the real secret, allspice. That's it. That's pretty much what I use. I do put in some nutmeg. I have put in coriander, all kinds of stuff, just in varying amounts. And I just do it and do it to taste, really, but we'll show you later. The first thing you want to do is peel and core all your apples. That right there is the most tedious, hardest thing you have to do to make this applesauce.
So, our implements of destruction are a peeler, a corer,
That core sucks, by the way. There's better ones.
and a knife. So, if you don't know how to peel and core apples, you're just going to peel till all the peel is gone. Then you're going to core to get the core out.
Or cut the core out.
Or you can just cut it with a knife.
Yeah.
We are going to do this off camera because it's tedious and boring and not good television.
So now, hold on one second. Look at the camera. Through the magic of television. Okay. And now we have 9 peeled and cored apples.
We have reserved all the peelings and cores and all that goodness for the compost.
Again, we're using 3 different kinds of apples. We're using Fuji because I like them. We're using
Gala,
Gala
because they were available.
because they're available. We're using Red Delicious. By the way, do you know why they call them Red Delicious apples? Because if they didn't, nobody would buy them. They're not my favorite kind of apples.
So,
Anyway.
we are using Brian's favorite cooking vessel. The
Made by Lodge.
Lodge.
It's a knockoff of Le Creuset. This is exactly what it is. Yeah, it's just ceramic covered
That's right.
cast iron. You can use a regular pot. I've done this numerous different things. I like using the cast iron because it's going to sit on the heat all day. So this way it spreads the heat out nicely. What you do not want is to let this burn. If it burns, you get a smoky, caramely burnt flavor in your applesauce, and it's just not good.
Caramely, I would say, would be the wrong word.
Burnt caramely. Tastes like ash.
Minus the H.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to cook these now for...
Like 4 hours, 5 hours. Now, I put this on the burner, put the lid on, no water, no nothing, okay? I don't put anything else in here, no spices, nothing, no salt even, nothing in here, okay? And I put the lid on it, I put it on 1 on my stove. If you want to put it in the oven and just bake it, you can do that too. I've never actually done it that way, but I'm guessing somewhere in the 250 to 275 range is probably going to be sufficient. Essentially, you're thinking low and slow. Could you do this in a crock pot or one of those instant pot things? Sure.
Absolutely.
If you have one big enough to hold all this. This is big. This is 9 apples. We've made multiple batches like this before. I like to use a big pot because you're going to stir this every hour or so. You want to get in there with a spatula or a spoon and stir this so nothing sticks to the bottom.
We made a really large batch for this over the Christmas, so we would have Christmas gifts to give to my mom. And we ended up having to use multiple pots.
Yeah.
So whatever vessel you use to cook it in, you want to be familiar with that vessel and know how heat distributes itself within that vessel.
Yeah, cast iron's probably best. I've done it in just a regular black cast iron.
Okay.
And it works fine. But anyway, we're just getting long-winded here. Put this on the oven, stir it once an hour. When they start to fall apart, like literally turn into applesauce, that's when it's done. And not even when it starts. When they've fallen apart and you don't have to mash them so much. When you just stirring makes them just completely fall apart. That's when you're ready for the next step that we'll show you. Well, in your time, just a couple minutes. But it'll probably be about 4 to 5 hours.
We'll see you then.
So the applesauce has been cooking for about 3-4 hours. Let's check it out. We've been stirring it too. Looks a lot like applesauce to me. You'll notice there are some chunks in there. We didn't mash them all out yet. Basically, they should go away just by doing this. Just a little gentle stir and a press against the sides. You can get a potato masher out. You can do whatever you want. Mash these down, get a fork, however you want to handle it. All right, so like I said, there's some lumps in here still, and that's okay. I'm just going to give it a little gentle press, sometimes against the side, and it gets rid of them all. I don't mind it a little chunky, to be honest with you. Doesn't bother me a bit.
One of our nephews proclaims that he doesn't like Brian's applesauce because it has apples in it. And that drives Brian crazy because applesauce obviously has apples in it.
And I don't believe in lying to children saying it doesn't have apples.
But that's not what he means. What he means is he doesn't like the chunky style applesauce.
Then that needs to be explained. Anyhow.
Our other nephew will eat this
Yeah, he will.
no problem.
So now I'm going to start putting in some of the spices and flavorings. First thing that might surprise you is salt. Now, if you see how much I'm using, that was literally a pinch. Salt acts as a flavor enhancer. It brings out every flavor that's in here. It'll also take something that's sweet and give it a little bit more of a body. Ground coriander. I put it in almost everything that has these kind of spices. Not much, just a little shake over the top. Not much at all. Cinnamon, ground, because putting a whole stick in here would be difficult.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon, I put in quite a bit. About that much. It's probably a teaspoon. Maybe two teaspoons. Ginger, ground ginger. Now, this stuff can get crazy if you put too much in, so I just like to put some. To me, it gives it that apple pie flavor. Ginger is just part of it. Not a lot. Maybe, what is it, a quarter teaspoon? You can already smell them coming through. This is the only use I've ever found for ground nutmeg. Now, if I had whole nutmegs and not made so much eggnog that I used up all of my whole nutmegs and Amazon wasn't holding back on delivering my nutmegs, which I need to check on, I would be using whole ground nutmegs, but instead I'm going to have to use the ground stuff, which actually still smells okay. I'm just putting a little bit in, because that can overpower very easily. So it's half a teaspoon at most. This is all to taste, so. Ground cloves. If you want to know a way to ruin an applesauce, too much of this. Literally, I'm just going to tap just the tiniest bit. If you look right there, that's where I'm putting it. That's it. That's all I'm putting in. That's like half a pinch. It's a dash. I don't know, what's under a pinch? Now, ground allspice. This is something I happen to like. I think it gives a little bit of that spicy kick to it. Don't put too much. This is another one that'll overdo it in a hurry. So you can smell it as soon as I open it up. Just going to put in probably about the same amount that I put of ground clove. Just see that little pile? That's it. Now, we mix.
Of course, you can change this up. You can omit some of these spices. You can add different spices.
But before you change it up, if you've never made applesauce before, try it this way
first.
If you like it, and you want to change something, go for it. But we see it with the brewing. People are like, oh, I want to change that up. And before you know it, it's not the same thing anymore. Not that, applesauce is the same as brewing, but it could be. It could happen.
Shockingly enough, you could omit the spices altogether and eat it just as cooked apples.
It'll be a little plain tasting, but it's actually still really good.
Really good.
Notice what I did not put in. Sugar.
Sugar!
No sugar of any kind goes into this.
The apples themselves had plenty of natural sugar. Oh, yeah. This is going to be so sweet and so delicious that you are going to swear that you added sugar, even though you made it yourself and you didn't.
The spices that go in it actually enhance the sweetness. They make it seem even sweeter. So, it works for me. And there you have it. Applesauce. You know what I need? A spoon. Never, ever, ever serve something to someone else without tasting it first. It's a Brianism. Always blow on your food, too. Which I don't always do. It's perfect.
Excellent.
It's exactly the way I would want it to be. You gonna feed me some?
Good.
It has apples in it. That was probably a good blooper.
Yeah.